Well, we're finally here, the finale. It's been quite a ride, what with my totally random upload schedule, but yeah. In case you're wondering, I don't intend on ever developing an upload schedule for every character rank nor my Game Grumps compilations. I just hate being limited to a deadline. I'll make a video whenever I goddamn want to. Anyway, I'm starting with Darth Vader for the finale for number 10. As much as I enjoy Darth Vader, he's practically Darth Maul without the double lightsaber and the epic flips and stuff. Sorry to say. He's the only Sith you get to play as in story mode, and you go through the whole game wondering, how do I interact with red sparkling stuff? And then you get to Jedi Destiny and you find out. It's pretty nifty. Just a side note, never play as Luke in Jedi Destiny. Always play as Vader, because Vader has Force Choke. Force Choke makes taking out the Royal Guards 3 times as easy. With Luke, it's pretty difficult, but enough with that. Let's talk about Vader in Rogue One. It's actually pretty good timing that the Vader segment came after Rogue One, because now I can talk about his role in it. Rogue One spoilers ahead, but honestly you're a loser if you haven't seen it yet, at this point. First, that final Vader scene was probably the best scene in the movie, hands down. Honestly, if you had a gripe with that scene in the slightest, you need to check your aspirations. Speaking of that, the other Vader scene on Mustafar is pretty debatable. You all know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about how the Mustafar scene is debatable. That's right. The choke pun. God, it was so terrible. There were no redeeming factors about that scene as a whole because of that one pun at the end. Sure, I might be overreacting, but I hated it. It was so out of character. Before someone says, "Oh, but he said like stuff like that in the original trilogy," I politely disagree. If there was a line of dialogue that was even remotely close to that, like the apology accepted line from Empire Strikes Back,
apology accepted, Captain Nida.
it's not as cringy as the choke pun. At least the apology accepted fit into the dialogue in the scene. The choke pun was just out of nowhere, and it was like Vader's equivalent of just a goof that he decided to add on to the end of the conversation because he wants the last word or something like that. Like, honestly, I'd prefer it if he just if he stayed silent and then he choked him like that. That would have been like more Vader-like in my opinion. Count Dooku is one of 2 characters that have the lightning ability. I talked about lightning briefly in the last part when talking about the custom characters. If you're wondering why the custom characters aren't number 1 and 2 on the list because of how they have almost every ability in the game, well, it's for that reason. I don't like playing custom characters in any LEGO game, to be honest. Sure, I like customizing them, but I'm not going to actually play them, you know. Anyway, back to Dooku. I think Dooku's pretty cool. Too bad he died like an absolute chump.
Do it.
It's kind of a shame because Christopher Lee's pretty baller. At least he got his time to shine at the end of Attack of the Clones. Unfortunately for him, his badass spotlight was in the worst movie in the franchise. But what can you do, right? The Dooku fight on Geonosis in LEGO Star Wars was pretty short. A lot of Legos in LEGO Star Wars 1 were pretty short compared to LEGO Star Wars 2. A good example of this is the Battle over Coruscant level. It was just one big area and it basically took you through the level for you. You could have gotten all collectibles in that level in story mode if you wanted. I mean, that's what I did. The majority of the prequel levels were only like a few areas long. You could probably play through the prequels in an hour and a half max in LEGO Star Wars. At least the original trilogy levels are a little longer. I'm glad Count Dooku's LEGO design was updated a few years ago. If any Star Wars character needed a LEGO makeover, it was Count Dooku. I own the newer Dooku, and he has the same face as Lego Saruman, which I guess would make sense because both of the characters were played by Christopher Lee. But it still makes me think that Lego is just being lazy. Also, one more thing. Look at Dooku's lightsaber. His curved hilt is like a staple of his character, right? His lightsaber in this game is barely curved. It's only curved like on the end, like he accidentally dropped it and like bent it. Like how you drop your phone and then it like cracks, but if he like drops his lightsaber, it bends, and he's like, "Oh crap, there goes my lightsaber." Like, and he doesn't have the money to buy another one because he spends all the money on like separatist ships and like that stupid solar or whatever it's called. You know what I'm talking about, the solar thing that he escaped on. Like he spent all his money on like renovating that ship, and then like he dropped his lightsaber and he's like, "Man, I'm gonna have to save like a couple months of work just to buy a new one." I could get it fixed, but that's pretty expensive. And alas, the only other character with lightning, the Emperor, is introduced. The Emperor's full name is Sheev Palpatine, so I will be calling him Sheev for the entire segment. You know, I really find it ironic that Chancellor Sheev is completely useless in this game, but Emperor Sheev is in the top 10. There's something poetic about that. Sheev Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith was a little offish.
Do it.
Of course he is the source of the do it memes you see on social media, but it seemed like Revenge of the Sith tried too hard to tie up loose ends between the prequels and the original trilogy, and Sheev Palpatine was pretty much the main reason for that. First, his little speech to Anakin that made Anakin go from slap happy Jedi to killing younglings as a full-fledged Sith in a matter of 15 minutes. Like, there's something wrong with that. Also, the reason for Sheev getting that gross-ass skin was stupid. Mace Windu reflecting the lightning on Sheev made him get all those wrinkles. What?
You have lost.
No. No. No.
You could have just said that the dark side of the Force withered Sheev for like the 20 years between Revenge of the Sith and Return of the Jedi. There's a simple explanation. I mean, really. And it's believable. But no, George gotta go make it like super convoluted for us. I swear, why does George have to do this to us? Granted, Revenge of the Sith was like the best of the prequels, and I actually enjoyed it more than A New Hope. Actually, my personal rankings of the Star Wars films goes as the following from best to worst: Empire Strikes Back, Rogue One, Force Awakens, Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith, A New Hope, Phantom Menace, and finally the tragic Attack of the Clones. I know I might get some hate for having A New Hope at such a low rank, but it was just pretty cheesy in my personal opinion. I should probably end the segment on a Sheev note, right? Well, the best part about the Emperor Sheev in LEGO Star Wars is that they incorporate Sheev's epic spins in his attacks. It's as if TT Games did it for the meme. I'll just say this right now. Indiana Jones is pretty much just Han Solo, which would make sense since it's Harrison Ford. In fact, Indiana Jones in this game has Han Solo's face, even though the icon clearly has the stubble. But I like the continuity of TT Games. His close-up attack is his whip though, which is kind of weird. LEGO Indiana Jones The Original Adventures was still in development at the time, and I'm glad they decided to not have his whip as his close-up attack. But they took away Indiana Jones' gun, which is sad. You may be wondering, if he's just like Han Solo, then why is he number 7 on the entire list? Well, it's because he's not even supposed to be in the game. He's in a totally separate franchise, and they still put this guy in. I wanted to say that for the entire time I've been making this series. Like, seriously. I came up with that line back when I was making part 2, and I wanted to say, the way you unlock Indiana Jones was pretty easy. All you have to do is watch the trailer in the bonus room, and then he was unlocked in the store. A lot of people don't know this, but I was an Indiana Jones fan long before I was a fan of Star Wars. I have an Indiana Jones encyclopedia and everything. I had a fedora and a toy whip. I don't have a real whip. I'm not like that, guys. And above all, my first LEGO set with skin-tone minifigures was an Indiana Jones set. And a lot of LEGO fans in 2008 and 2009 will agree with me when I say that LEGO Indiana Jones sets were some of the best. They should have released more Temple of Doom sets, to be honest. They only came out with 2 and I have 1. Maybe it was because of how dark Temple of Doom was. I don't know. Hopefully LEGO will reboot it, the theme, by the time the next movie comes out. And yes, Indy 5 is in production. At least it is while Harrison Ford is still alive. LEGO Indiana Jones: The Original Adventures is in my top 3 LEGO games of all time for nostalgia alone. What I'm trying to say is, I'm very happy that Indiana Jones is in this game, because he's among my favorite characters ever. Harrison Ford may have been more iconic as Han Solo, but I always saw Indiana Jones as his character. It's genius. He isn't supposed to be in this game. There you go. After the legend that is Indiana Jones comes General Grievous. You know, General Grievous was my main while I hunted down mini-kits in the prequel trilogy levels. Turns out a lot of mini-kits in the Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith levels require high jumping. The mini-kits themselves aren't even cleverly placed. They're just in a high place above the ground in a corner of something, and you just get the mini-kit by jumping high. General Grievous is by far the best high jumping character in the game, but only because he has like 4 lightsabers and it's cool. Realistically, he's on par with a Grievous bodyguard, but if I were to complain about one thing with General Grievous is that he's a bit hard to control at times. Like, for example, say you were in midair and all you wanted was to move to an area behind you. If you wanted to go back, you'd have to wait until you're entirely stopped on the ground. If you try to walk back, you could roll back. And Grievous's rolling can be cool and everything, but you always do it when you're not intending to. One time I accidentally rolled off a cliff. Other than that, yeah, Grievous is great. Of course he was nerfed big time in the New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi levels. As I explained in earlier parts, high jumpers no longer get the high jumping ability in the original trilogy levels, because high jumping wasn't a mechanic in the LEGO Star Wars 2. I will say though, LEGO greatly improved Grievous' design over the years. Grievous in this game, he doesn't look like Grievous. He looks like a skeleton that was owned by a Chernobyl mutant. I was thinking about painting a picture of Chernobyl mutations, but never mind. One Google search was all it took to swerve me away. Okay, I regret comparing Grievous to Chernobyl, but that's what he looks like compared to the newer design, and luckily the newer design is what you see in later Star Wars games, LEGO Star Wars games. We all knew they were coming. That's right, the Fetts. And we all know why the Fetts are up this high. It's because of their hover ability. That's right, an ability we haven't seen since the Astromechs. One might argue that the Astromechs should have been ranked higher based on their hover ability alone, but I'll tell you what, IG-88 and 4-LOM render the Astromechs pointless in terms of droid panels, and the Fett family takes the Astromechs one last redeeming factor, which is the hovering. Why have a robot that can hover when you can have a guy with 2 space pistols that can hover? Checkmate, atheists. But let's get talking about Jango Fett himself. At least his death was at least somewhat admirable. It was admirable compared to his son, at least. Samuel L. Jackson killed him. What else do you need to die an honorable death? I still think it's kind of messed up that Boba Fett took his dad's decapitated body, took it out of the armor, and then repainted it. Do you realize how traumatizing that would be? Like, damn. Some say that Boba Fett's armor is in fact not Jango's because of how Jango had a dent on his helmet in a different place, or something like that. Like, both Jango Fett and Boba Fett had dents on their helmets, but like they're in different places. Which I'm going to say that Jango gained a dent in a helmet during the fight with Obi-Wan in Attack of the Clones was the dent you see on Boba Fett's armor. And George Lucas, you know, he has like an obsession with explaining literally everything, including the dent on Boba Fett's armor, so he had to incorporate it into Attack of the Clones. And I think the matter of it being in the wrong place is just George being George as usual. Always count on George Lucas to explain things that don't need to be explained, but he'll still screw it up somehow. And I realize I've been throwing a lot of shade towards George Lucas in this series, in this part in particular, but that's because I really don't like what he did with the prequel trilogy. We all saw this coming. I practically inferred Boba Fett comes right after Jango Fett. I would combine these two characters if I could, but they are different. Barely different, but different for two reasons. The obvious one is that their color schemes are different. The second difference is that their weapon of choice. Jango Fett has two pistols, while Boba Fett has a straight-up rocket launcher-sized blaster. Like I said countless times before, I don't get why everyone likes Boba Fett so much, since he died like a chump. But I can see why some people's favorite character to play in this game is Boba Fett. It's the same thing with Jango Fett too. They're cool bounty hunter floaty guys. What else could you ask for? Nothing. The answer to that question is nothing. Like General Grievous, Boba Fett as a LEGO minifigure has improved greatly over the years. The version of Boba Fett you see in this game is the original version. I've never owned the original Boba Fett, the one you see in this game, but I do know that you can't even move his head around. It's like Michael Keaton Batman, but with LEGO. That being said, I still wouldn't mind owning one, because just for nostalgia's sake. I have the newer Boba Fett, and I like him more because of the amount of detail he has. Also, his helmet is more accurate, and you can actually move it around. I have a Mandalorian in blue armor as well from the Mandalorian Battle Pack from years ago, and I know that the Mandalorian isn't Jango Fett, but he might as well be. The armor looks very similar. Boba Fett was rumored to have his own solo movie in the works too, but I'm not sure if that's still a thing. I know I've said that in this series before, but as much as I say how much like Boba Fett is a chump, I do hope he plays some sort of role in the upcoming Han Solo movie. It's obvious that Han and Boba Fett had some kind of past. They had history before The Empire Strikes Back, and I want to see that story. I have no idea who should play Boba Fett, but maybe it's the borderline pedophile you see in that picture where it had Boba Fett unmasked. Like, that'd be pretty neat. You all saw this coming. That's the third time in a row that I've said that about a character in this part, but this time I truly mean it. If you aren't familiar with this game, this is probably a delightful surprise for you. If you knew about this game before the series, then you should have known the Ghost would be in the top 3. They are practically invisible Jedi. That's right. When you're a Ghost, no enemy can spot you. This is pretty useful when you're minikit hunting with no extras enabled. Trust me, I've been there. But in the footage you see, I have every unlockable extra enabled, so I guess it doesn't really matter in the end. But I put Yoda as the quote-unquote worst Ghost because just like the regular living Yoda, he's super slow without a lightsaber, and he's only slightly faster with a lightsaber. I know I put Yoda as the top Jedi even though he was slow, so that, like, basically by that logic, shouldn't Yoda be number 1? But I put Yoda as the top Jedi because he was the most different. While most Jedi Masters are just like clones of each other, Yoda actually goes out and he's not a clone of Luminara, Kit Fisto, well, not Mace Windu, he has a different jumping ability, Kit Fisto, Shakti, etc, 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 all Obi-Wans, all of that crap. And like, I can put Ghost Yoda as the worst Ghost because he is slow. Because there's only 3 Ghosts. There aren't freaking 20 of them. Also, it's my own goddamn list, so I can do what I want. Capiche? At least Ghost Yoda has a lightsaber. Speaking of lightsabers, why do Ghost Jedi need their lightsabers? It's not like anything is going to try to kill them. They're already dead. Also, since they have ghost lightsabers, does that mean their lightsabers also die when the owners die? And if lightsabers are dead, are they still usable? I mean, they have to be since Rey used Anakin's lightsaber in Episode 7. Maybe it's a zombie lightsaber brought back to life through the Force? I don't know. Lightsabers are weird, man. Why do they have to be so confusing by crossing into the afterlife with their owners? Like, God. Enough lightsaber talk. My point is, Ghost Yoda is pretty baller along with the other ghosts coming up. I would usually prefer to play this ghost instead of the ghost that's number 1, but Ghost Anakin is like number 2 because of the controversy around Ghost Anakin. In case you don't know, the original Anakin was replaced by Hayden Christensen. Some favor the original Anakin, and others prefer Hayden, so... You know, of course it's George Lucas's fault. I mean, why does George Lucas like Hayden Christensen so much? If he takes the time to put Hayden over the original Anakin, like, why? I'm personally on the fence with it though. I mean, if Hayden was going to be the ghost, at least make it so he isn't looking at Luke like he wants to bone him. Like, seriously, look at the look on Anakin's face. Some prefer Hayden Christensen as the ghost because they say Anakin died when Darth Vader died. But if that's the case, then why did Darth Vader become good again at the Return of the Jedi? Did Anakin's soul get rejuvenated into Vader? And if so, does that mean Darth Vader Anakin is technically a zombie? I'm sorry for bringing up zombies again. It's just that's just how it is when you're discussing spooky subjects. You talk about one, and another one gets incorporated into the conversation. I don't know. Anyway, some say that Anakin's ghost should have been Vader when he died, meaning he'd still have like all those scars. To be honest, I'd hate being a ghost who's scarred all over like that. I'd try to kill myself even though I'm already dead. Logically, shouldn't ghosts be able to change their appearance whenever they want? I mean, they lived an entire life. They deserve to treat themselves by being able to metamorphosize. Yoda especially. I mean, that dude died at like 900 years old. He deserves to have a smoking hot beach bod in the afterlife. I mean, there'd be no one around to admire it other than 2 grown men, but hey, it's better than nothing. We're here, finally. Number 1. God, I'm so happy. The making of the series was very similar to 100% completing LEGO Star Wars: The Complete Saga. Similar in what way, you may ask? Well, both tasks take a long time to accomplish, and it starts to get on your nerves by the end. Ghost Ben Kenobi is basically regular Ben Kenobi, except that he can't be spied by enemies. One thing that really bothered me about the ghost shot at the end of Return of the Jedi was that their ages aren't consistent. Really, they should have kept Hayden Christensen out of it, because then all 3 of the ghosts would be at the ages they died. It doesn't make sense for Ben and Yoda to be old, but then Anakin be young. Doesn't make sense. It shouldn't make sense to anyone, because I say so. Anyway, if we're talking about continuity, how did Obi-Wan age so goddamn fast? Between the Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, he went from a fairly young dude to an old man with arthritis in the matter of 20 years. That's a bit strange. I heard that he aged faster because he was like camping out on Tatooine, a desert planet with 2 suns. I'm not sure people say that implying that deserts make people look bad, or maybe that the 2 suns actually make you age faster, but if it's the latter, that's not how aging works. Saying you age faster because of 2 suns is like saying Superman's method of time travel by making the Earth spin the opposite way makes sense. Anyway, that does it for the series, and I'm thinking about uploading a supercut where I just put every part in the series side by side and release it as one big video. Honestly, I'm not sure if anyone would take the time to watch it, but I'm curious to see how long it'll turn out to be. And I'm going to be doing an every ship ranked of this game, so watch out for that. And that'll be like 3 parts long. It's not going to be a big thing. I just want to move on to the next Lego game. But yeah, thanks for watching, and good night, or morning, or whatever time you're watching this at.